Hello NFL fans and welcome back to the Wall of NFL. In this video today I'm going to be talking about all of my top takeaways from Sunday's NFL action. The Jets fought really hard in their win against the Titans on Sunday. They managed to win the game in overtime after a field goal and the Titans not being able to score their own field goal to tie the game. It was a really big win for the Jets, and you can see on all the players and all the coaches' faces how sweet that victory tasted. They've had a real difficult time in the first few weeks, and I actually think they were the worst team in the league by far. They'd really struggled, and relying on a rookie quarterback is not a good way to succeed in the NFL. So the fact that they got their first win, I'm actually surprised by, but they did definitely deserve it after the way they played in that one. The Titans looked really bad offensively, and they had to look to Derrick Henry an awful lot on third and fourth down to try and bail them out and help keep their drives going. The Chiefs' offense is virtually going to be unstoppable for the majority of their games. Of course, they scored 42 points this weekend against the Eagles, and Tyreek Hill managed to get 3 of those touchdowns, having an absolute monster game. And while they have Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey, and Edwards-Helaire on offense, they're going to find it really easy to get a lot of points. What I think the trouble is going to be the Chiefs' defense and whether they're going to be able to compete with a lot of the top teams when they come up to face them. Conceding 30 points against the Eagles, where Jalen Hurts, he struggles to play if it goes past his first read, and if the play breaks down, he struggles quite a bit, which is a bit of a worry for the Eagles. The Chiefs are no longer looking indestructible, and Mahomes has thrown 4 interceptions in the last 3 weeks. If he continues to do that against some of the top teams, the Chiefs are really going to struggle and find it hard to compete when it comes to those really important games later on in the regular season and in the playoffs as well. Before this game, we thought the Panthers may be the real deal. They had a really formidable defense and an offense that was so reliable at scoring 20 to 30 points a game that they were just winning games left, right and centre. So this win for the Cowboys may well say a lot more about the Cowboys than the Panthers, because the Cowboys were able to play against the Panthers and they were able to score 36 points against them, which is a lot. And now that the Cowboys have managed to work in the run game and the passing game, and they have such a good balance on offense that it means that they can play against any team really. They've scored 29, 20, 41 and 36 points so far this season, which is a great start for the Cowboys. And if they're able to continue to do that, they should easily win their division, as the Washington football team are clearly struggling without Ryan Fitzpatrick playing quarterback for them. The Cowboys' defense is also looking a lot better than it did last year. Trayvon Diggs, especially in the secondary, now has 5 interceptions on the year, at least 1 in each of the last 4 games. And if he's able to keep on taking the ball away from their opponents, the Cowboys' offense should have a lot of success. If they're able to keep going, I think that they could really compete with the top teams in the NFC, like the Rams and the Buccaneers, which we've actually seen them already compete really well against the Buccaneers in Week 1. The Saints had this game in the bag pretty much for the entirety of the game, but in the second half, in the fourth quarter particularly, Saquon Barkley shone and he was able to score 2 touchdowns, 1 in the fourth quarter and then 1 again in overtime to win the Giants the game. Now that Barkley's been able to be worked into the running game a lot more and the passing game, the Giants offense looks a lot more fluid, and if they're able to do what they did in the second half to the Saints in the future against other teams that they may face, I think that they'll have a lot more success than they did in the first 3 weeks. The Saints are now down to 2-2 on the year and really look like they're hot and cold, and you don't really know what you're going to get from them. Jameis Winston looks like he's struggling here and there and looks like he's still making throws that the Buccaneers' Jameis Winston would do. Taysom Hill, when he came in for the Saints, looked a whole lot better and had one of the best runs of the year so far. I think that they may actually look towards Taysom Hill to get that offense going a little bit more if Jameis Winston keeps on sputtering. The Browns and the Vikings was a very slow game offensively. They only scored 21 points between them, and the Browns were winning the game for the entirety of the game almost, because the Kirk Cousins and the Vikings offense weren't able to get the ball moving down the field. This was the first bad game for Kirk Cousins so far this season, And normally, so far this season, he hasn't thrown a single interception and has been brilliant for the Vikings and has actually been the focal point of the offense, taking the ball away from Dalvin Cook an awful lot. But this week, he threw an interception to Greedy Williams and just had a bad game overall and wasn't able to get going because the Cleveland Brown defense so far this year has been really good and is becoming really elite. Last week, they only conceded 6 points against the Chicago Bears, and we kind of thought, oh, maybe it was a bit of a fluke because it was Justin Fields' first game and he was a rookie. But now doing that to the Vikings offense, who have actually scored a lot of points so far, 31 points per game so far this season, and they held their Vikings to 7 points as well. So I'm starting to think that this Cleveland Browns defense really is the real deal and will help the Browns do well later on in the regular season and the playoffs, because their offense isn't quite so good if the running game isn't firing on all cylinders. Justin Fields had a much better game this week against the Detroit Lions than he did last week against the Cleveland Browns. He threw for 209 yards and didn't throw for a touchdown, which he hasn't actually done all year so far, despite starting 2 games and being kind of a gadget player in the first 2. David Montgomery has definitely been the guy that the Bears have been looking to so far to get the offense going and try and churn up some yards so that they can get a few first downs. But now that David Montgomery was injured after his 100-yard game with 2 touchdowns, the Bears might struggle offensively going forward because they really do rely on Montgomery to get the chains moving. I think that the Detroit Lions have really summed up their season in just one play yesterday. The play that the center snaps the ball, it hits off Goff, flies over the line of scrimmage and into the hands of the Bears defender. I've never seen anything like it, and to be quite frank, it sums up the Lions really. Mistakes here and there, missed throws, and just plain old bad football. And unfortunately for the Lions, it's the same thing year in and year out. The Bills have really shown so far this season that they do have an elite defense. They've only conceded 9 points per game so far this year, with 2 shutouts against the Texans this weekend, 40-0, and against the Dolphins, 35-0, 2 weeks ago. The Bills have looked really good, and they also score a lot of points offensively as well. So far this season, they've scored 34 points offensively, and with a great defense, it kind of means that Josh Allen doesn't have to do an awful lot. He can sit back and relax, and the pressure's completely off. But yet he's still performing game in and game out. Well, he was a bit shaky in the first couple of games, but he's starting to get back to his normal self that he was last year. Stephon Diggs has taken a lot of pressure off of his back as well by adding Emmanuel Sanders, and they've looked really good now, with Josh Allen being able to distribute the ball an awful lot to lots of different players, including their tight end Knox as well, who you should pick up on fantasy if you can. I think that the Texans, though, they really don't look like a good team without Tyrod Taylor. Davis Mills struggled terribly in that really bad weather yesterday, and I think that with Tyrod Taylor out injured, the Texans are going to struggle, and it's going to take some time for them to really improve. I think that they're kind of getting back to where we thought they would be before the season started. I predicted them 0-17 before the season started, but they're kind of looking like that now, despite winning a game against the Jaguars in week 1. The Colts are winless no more, and now that they've beaten the Dolphins in the Jacoby Brissett revenge game, it looks like they can kind of finally kick on and do a little bit more and win a few more games. Wentz again didn't look amazing, but they got the job done, so where's the complaints really with them? The Dolphins, on the other hand, despite how many weapons they have and the fantastic pieces that is around Jacoby Brissett and Tua when he's healthy, the offense just lacks a kind of explosiveness, and I think that they struggle to get a lot of points on the board. I think that it's going to be a tricky season for the Dolphins, and despite the fact that I thought they'd be a playoff team this year, it looks like they may only finish maybe around 9-8 if they're lucky so far, if they continue with this form that they have. Maybe when Tua gets back they'll be a lot better, but fingers crossed for the Dolphins. Despite the Falcons playing their hearts out against the Washington football team, Terry McLaurin came in clutch and got 123 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns to match that, taking the football team back from the pits of defeat and winning them the game. The Falcons, again, looked okay on offense, but defensively they let a lot of things go, and I'm starting to feel like Arthur Smith may end up on the hot seat if he's not careful. Going 0-4 when you had a lot of hype coming into the season and barely using your brand new Hall of Fame potential tight end Kyle Pitts, it looks like they're just lacking an awful lot. Cordarrelle Patterson, though, he did have a great game with 3 touchdowns, but why throw it to Cordarrelle Patterson when you've got a guy like Kyle Pitts and Calvin Ridley on the field? And of course I get it that Cordarrelle Patterson's a great weapon, but I feel like you've got to get your star players into the lineup a little bit more. But the Washington football team look great, and Taylor Heineke looks like he's one of the best backups in the league, and he's clearly able to compete with some of the starting quarterbacks around in the NFL in each of their games. The football team are now 2-2, but they will need to improve a little bit if they're going to compete with the Dallas Cowboys, who've had a great start to their year, for the NFC East crown. The 49ers' misfortunes clearly are continuing, with their kicker going out injured right before the game started, leaving their punter to do all of their kicking for them, and also Jimmy Garoppolo leaving the first half after an injury and not getting dressed for the second half. Basically, Jlants had to come in for the second half, and he really struggled actually. And if Deebo Samuel didn't get himself open on a busted Seahawks coverage, and also that they didn't score a garbage time touchdown, they basically had nothing and were woeful going forwards. Jlants should be a lot better with some time to prepare, but I haven't got a lot of high hopes considering he's missed a lot of college football with him sitting out for COVID, and the year before didn't really play that much either. So despite him being one of the top picks in the draft, he's very raw and he will need a lot of work if he's going to be able to take that 49ers team to the playoffs. So let's really hope that Jimmy Garoppolo comes back from injury soon. The Seahawks, on the other hand, just looked like the Seahawks. They were really tough, and despite one messed up play, which I mentioned that Deebo Samuel scored on, they looked really tough, and Jamal Adams especially getting a big tackle in the second half. And I thought Russell Wilson putting on a Russell Wilson clinic, really. There was one play in particular where he dodged a blindside defender coming right at him, span around and found Swain in the corner of the end zone, and no one else can do that except Russell Wilson. So if he's able to continue doing that and the offense gets a bit better, and now they've kicked on after losing 2 games straight, I think the Seahawks are back in playoff contention in their division. The Cardinals are now solidifying themselves as one of the top 5 teams in the NFL, maybe even higher if you ask me, but I think that Kyler Murray is playing absolutely amazingly, and the Rams had absolutely no chance against the Cardinals yesterday. Defensively, they completely shut down Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford, and they just didn't have anything really going offensively, the Rams. The Cardinals, on the other hand, Kyler Murray was dodging defenders, throwing the ball with pinpoint accuracy, and they put up 37 points against a really tough Rams defense. I think Kyler Murray is definitely the top at everyone's MVP rankings at the moment, and I know it's only early on, but he looks like there is no sign of him slowing down. The Cardinals are now to 4-0 and ahead of the Rams, who are now 3-1 in their division, and the Cardinals look to be the team to beat in the NFC at the moment. Saying that though, they didn't really do it last year, so maybe in terms of merit, the Buccaneers and the Rams deserve to be up there, but honestly, so far this year, I don't think there's been a team that started as well as the Cardinals have. Offensively, the Steelers are 27th in the league, only averaging around 300 yards per game. They did that again this week, with Big Ben going for 230 yards and Najee Harris running for about 60 yards as well. So they struggled offensively again, and they definitely need some kind of spark to get them going offensively. Big Ben had a 78 passer rating and threw an interception, so he's really struggling, and I think the Steelers will be definitely looking for a quarterback in the offseason. I think this is the year that they're not going to have a winning record. And now that I think they're 1-3 and they've lost to the Bengals and lost to the Packers and Bills, and it's just not looked good for the Steelers at all so far this season. The Packers, on the other hand, they're starting to get back into the playoff contention and looking like one of the best teams in the NFC. I know they had a really bad start against the Saints at the beginning of the season, losing 38-3, but that's kind of in the rearview mirror now, as they've kicked on and beaten the Steelers and some other tough teams as well. I think that Aaron Rodgers, now having a bit of a running game in there as well, is helping that offense to open up opposing defenses, and it's helping Aaron Rodgers to make those pinpoint passes we all know that he can make. The Broncos had an excellent 3-0 start to the year, but now that they've come up against another AFC contender in the Ravens, they look nowhere near as where they should be if they're going to be competing for the top playoff spots. They did lose the game eventually, and I think it might partly be down to Teddy Bridgewater going out injured and Drew Lock having to come in and replace him, as in the second half they basically had nothing offensively, and actually they scored their only touchdown at the beginning of the game to go up 7-0. But once Teddy Bridgewater went out and Drew Lock came in, Drew Lock's a very mistake-prone quarterback, and he's got a really big arm, but it's Teddy Bridgewater doesn't make any mistakes, and with Drew Lock coming back into the lineup, mistakes are going to creep back in as well. Their defense is still really good though, and they almost held the Ravens to less than 100 rushing yards, but at the end of the game, the Ravens managed to get that 100 rushing yards and keep their streak alive of consecutive games with 100 rushing yards, which is now up to 43, tying the all-time record. The Ravens offense, it wasn't really rush heavy this week, as I mentioned, and they only just managed to keep that record going. But Hollywood Brown and Duvernay as well, the wide receivers, looked a lot better and helped that offense move a little bit more forward. It was a good sign that Jackson was able to throw the ball a little bit more. So if they're able to throw and run and combine all that, they will be unstoppable. And as we've already seen, the Ravens have beaten the Chiefs so far this year and barely lost to the Raiders. And of course, they beat the 3-0 Broncos as well. So maybe the Ravens are the top team in the AFC, maybe except for the Buffalo Bills. Tom Brady's homecoming to New England couldn't have gone any better for him. The Buccaneers ended up winning the game 19-17, and Tom Brady broke the record for the most passing yards in a career in the regular season with 80,560. If Tom Brady does play to 50 like he says he wants to, that record is going to go flying up and it's going to be super hard for anyone to beat. I think the next person in line might be Patrick Mahomes, as he's averaging 40 yards per game more in his career than Tom Brady. So if he plays a long time, he could break it. But at the moment, I don't see it happening for a long time. Bill Belichick, I'm sure, is seething about losing to Tom Brady because it is clear that the Buccaneers won that divorce. And if that field goal would have gone in, I'm sure Bill would have had a smile on his face. But in the end, it looked like at the end of the game, Brady and Bill didn't want to say much to each other. And I think Brady is definitely smug about that win in New England. So thank you guys for watching all of my thoughts from NFL's Week 4 action. Please comment down below what you thought from all of this week's action as well. I'd love to hear what you guys thought of all of the games as well. Please head to wallofnfl.com where we have live scores during games. We also have articles that are posted throughout the week, and of course any breaking news goes up on there as well. Please also check out our social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and TikTok, which are in the description. And please like and subscribe as well. So I'll see you in the next video and have a great week.